Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's broadcast from New York City, where I am at the end of an extended stay on the East Coast and looking forward very much to coming back to California tomorrow. But in the meantime, it's my great pleasure to welcome this afternoon as my guest, Stuart Chafetz, who is the principal pops conductor of the Marin Symphony. Welcome, Stuart.
Hey, it's great to see you as always.
Wonderful to see you too. And even though that you've only been officially part of the Marin Symphony family for a relatively short period of time with your appointment, you really have been maybe offstage part of our musical community for many, many years due to your wife, Anne Krinitsky, our youth orchestra leader. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, as well as how you came to your life as a conductor.
Well, watching Anne conduct the orchestra that she actually played in, because she grew up right here, and we've been here since for 10 years together, and it has been such a wonderful experience to see her go full circle, and for me to be a part of that, and sort of the backstage cheerleader for her during her performances. It's been wonderful, as well as watching your concerts. It's been really wonderful, mostly because I don't have to get on a plane, or I can just walk to the performance, which is such a pleasure.
It's a luxury in a way, but with your previous life, which was much more complicated in a certain way. And let's go to that, because it touches on how you and I first met, and this is in your life as a timpanist in Honolulu. Let's talk a little bit about that, how it all started for you.
Right. So I was in love with the timpani and majored in percussion and Cincinnati, and then got my master's at Eastman. And immediately after Eastman, I won the job as the timpanist of the Greensboro Symphony in North Carolina. And then the Florida Orchestra in Tampa, I played there for 1 month. And finally getting the position in Honolulu in 1989 in the fall, and was there for 20 years. And while I was there, I was very fortunate to be able to work with you, coming in for subscription concerts. And in particular, I remember Elgar Enigma Variations, which was something very close to near and dear to your heart, clearly, and also the ability to elicit this gorgeous sound from our orchestra, this warmth, and, being in the back, being able to kind of watch what works on the podium has been such a gift musically for all of us. So
tell us about how conducting came into the picture then. I mean, you had this career going as an orchestral timpanist, and many people will be perfectly happy with that, but obviously there was a bug waiting to bite you. How long was your interest in conducting?
Well, I was always interested in it during college. We'd take the elective of conducting, and it actually started when I was in high school, and my sort of chamber choir would go into New York City, because I grew up outside in Long Island. We would go and do Christmas caroling into the city and to senior residence homes, during the holidays. And my conductor at the time would say, "Hey, I'm going for a walk here. Stu, why don't you take over?" He knew I was interested in going to music, so that's how that kind of started. And conducting the chorus, feeling that sense of, wow, this is really fun. And so that's kind of where it started. I always sort of had an interest in being the conduit to kind of making those big sounds. So I went from 2 sticks to 1, as I say. And then that's the rest is sort of history. But I was very interested in conducting. And one summer in 1992, I went to the Harold Farberman Conductors Institute at Hart School of Music, and that's where I met Anne, actually. And so I have to say I didn't learn very much about conducting that summer, because I was in love, but it was a great experience to watch her do her thing.
Absolutely. Well, clearly a very important summer, and you learn the most important thing, which is nothing to do with where 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 goes.
Right. Exactly. It's all here, and that's the beauty of it, is you never know what happens in life. Had I not gone to that conducting seminar, life would be completely different.
Absolutely. No, I think many of us have similar kind of, forks in the road kind of thing.
Right, exactly.
And in a sense, another fork in the road is this kind of transition you've made from being at the back of the orchestra to being at the front, and particularly in the world of pops. We are, some conductors specialize in some areas, the Baroque specialists or new music specialists, and you have carved out this next part of your life principally in the field of pop. So was that by accident, but by design?
Well, it really sort of solidified for me when I was resident conductor with the Milwaukee Symphony. And while we were taking Shostakovich and Brahms all over Milwaukee and all over Wisconsin, I enjoyed it so much. But one of the nice things about being resident conductor is that you could also do the pops concerts, also cover for Bluebeard's Castle of Bartók with Edo Devard on the podium. And, there were all kinds of positives. But when I would do a family concert or a pops concert, I realized that there was this connection to the audience that I hadn't gotten necessarily from just sort of conducting this wonderful repertoire of Strauss and Shostakovich. I was having this connection with the audience and the children, and sort of a dialogue, if you will, in that kind of way. And I felt like the feeling that I got when I would talk to people after, where you would go into the lobby and meet and greet, and sometimes with the instrument petting zoos and those kinds of things, and you talk to the parents and said, that was really fun. I had a really good time. I didn't know how much fun a symphony orchestra could be. And being that person to introduce and to get people excited about the symphony in that perspective really resonated with me. I love conducting all the repertoire, but for some reason, conducting pops and feeling the energy of the positivity within the crowd that can clap and cheer at any time, and just give you positive feelings when you're up on the podium, but also just knowing that that part of the community is just on fire about classical music. And that's why it resonated with me so much.
And that comes across so beautifully in your work on the podium. I can almost call it, doesn't feel like work at all. It just seems like you invite the audience onto the stage with you, and your infectious enthusiasm is just so wonderful to see, and it makes these connections as you point out.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I often say, we don't work music, we play music, because of that exuberance that music can give people. And I just, the energy coming off of sort of a John Williams full orchestra featured program, which is really important, because I think very often we get excited about a name playing with the symphony orchestra with regards to pops, say a big name soloist in pops. But I've always been a fan about really letting the orchestra shine, and always picking pops programs that are going to be about the orchestra. And because being in the orchestra, knowing very often that the orchestra could be an unsung hero in pops, just kind of playing the background with a John Williams program or a light classics program, very often we get to feature, our wonderful Marin Symphony, which is really, really good. So
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about programming. It's a very interesting thing, because, and maybe to drill down a little bit more deeply about if there's such a thing as you have a philosophy about programming, but it seems to me that in a sense, like classical themed concerts, that pops programming is changing a little bit with the times. I think back to the old days of maybe the Fiedler or Eric Kunzel. Has the model changed, or do you see the model differently from those more traditional, I guess for want of a better expression, you could say traditional pops model?
Well, very interestingly, that's a great question, because very often pop subscribers can be both young and old. And so it's important to kind of have a variety of programming, because people get this smile on their face when you mention the Boston Pops and Arthur Fiedler. It's amazing, the kind of the reaction that the older supporters and audience members remember, because very often that's the first time that they've seen a pops concert with a symphony orchestra. And then there are other people who are just completely transfixed with film live to orchestra. And that to me has been this phenomenon of having the Star Wars movies being played with full symphony orchestra as the soundtrack. So that's sort of how things have been trending. But I think with a pop season, you want to have a variety. You want to be able to, pay tribute to Arthur Fiedler's style. I love that, because again, that's very much about the symphony orchestra being the star. And the same thing with movies. I think it brings in a totally different audience. So when I premiered Nightmare Before Christmas, when I conducted that, I was amazed, because it came out, I believe, in 1993, and it was sort of after my time as something that I would have been interested in. I remember seeing it in the movie, but not thinking anything of it. But I could not believe what it was like in the audience. People got dressed up in all the costumes. It was almost like the modern version of Rocky Horror Picture Show for me. And to see families completely dressed up, and this is like a tradition now for most people on Halloween, which I had no idea. So it was like a complete different demographic that came to the symphony, which led to other things, and it's always nice to make friends in the community of people who you wouldn't normally expect to be at a symphony orchestra concert.
Seems to me that this is the biggest game changer in recent years, is the addition of live movies with orchestra. Tell us a little bit more and talk to us about some of the challenges that are associated with that, because it seems to me that if it all goes well, it's like the swan floating across the water. They don't see the paddling going underneath. Tell us about some of the paddling, because I've been there as well, but I'm fascinated to get your perspective.
Okay, so
I've done, and it's not easy. At least not for me. It's not. Is it easy for you?
No,
or is it easy
in fact,
to go along?
It's a lot harder because there's no room for wiggle. There's no wiggle room, as we like.
Why is that? Well, is that from a technical point of view? The people that may not know, what's the big driver of the rhythm in this case?
Yeah, well, there is the film and the click track and these streamers that go along your monitor. So you actually have this monitor that you're watching, which has all the timings, has all the tempos, and sometimes the orchestra is on click completely, so they know, but also very often you may be the only one on click, depending on the movie.
Is, or if anybody that's not familiar with that, is basically a musical metronome, a metronome that goes in your earpiece, basically, right?
Exactly. And so depending on the film, it's really crucial. So for a film like Mary Poppins, you have to be with Dick Van Dyke. You have to make sure that his lyrics come out exactly in the accompaniment. So it's very challenging, because you get off by an eighth note or one beat, and the whole audience knows that, supercalifragilistic, the alidocious has to be where it is, and everyone grew up with it, and they'll know right away. So there's that pressure, and it's it takes so much concentration, I would say. But like you say, when it's in sync, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's just like, it's magical to be able to line everything up, for example, like during Halloween when we did Psycho, and to line up the shower scene exactly with the strings, and it's unbelievable, and it's electrifying, because the power of music being right there rather than some weird speaker adds so much more. So
absolutely, I think that's why it's been almost surprisingly popular. It's just such a huge thing these days, and you can see why, because it's all of the thrill of the movie plus the live experience of the orchestra, which is great. So I know that you, like me, your last season was rudely interrupted. That has also been interrupted, but at the point that we get things back to normal, whatever and whenever that is, do you have some ambitions for the Marin Symphony's pop series that you can share? Is there a direction that you are thinking of going in? Not necessarily specific, but just general ideas of what you'd like to bring to the table?
Well, I think we were sort of on that trail because we had some beautiful concerts lined up. Unfortunately, very much we had a superheroes concert, which was all about the symphony, all the great film scores and soundtracks from superheroes. We also had a lovely tribute to Elton John coming up, and I think that the variety again very important, especially because the Marin Symphony hasn't per se had a pop series. I know you've had some wonderful concerts in the park, and we sort of just want to pick up from where sort of that was left, and kind of allow the community, certain people that maybe not would come, would feel like that might be something that they would like to do. I think that there's so many possibilities. And being, actually Marin being kind of a rock town, there's a lot of rockers here. And it'd be really interesting to kind of see the kind of collaborations that we could come up with specifically written for the Marin Symphony. I see that as a really cool thing to be able to, call on Jefferson Starship or some of the people that were, walking by downtown San Rafael, these legends walking down the street. It'd be really great to be able, I remember being in Mill Valley and sitting right next to Steve Smith, the drummer of Journey, and just being like, oh my God, like it's that feeling of like, let's get something going, and I think that's also a really exciting possibility. And I'm talking about charts that are really well written symphonically. So some of the things that I've been doing, I have a tribute to Genesis and Phil Collins, and it's pure orchestral with singers, but it's not like a rock band in front with the orchestra playing whole notes, and which for everybody out there is very easy and just kind of like not much. The repertoire for the Genesis Phil Collins concert really explores the wonderful music's syncopated, melodic, harmonic genius of Phil Collins, and of course when he was a solo artist, but also with Genesis, and we've had a lot of fun with that. But like you, everything's been sort of put on hold and rescheduled to 2021 or 2022. So it's been very frustrating. The last concert I did was in March, which was the premiere of the Phil Collins Genesis in Philly with the Philly Pops, and it was just electrifying. And that's the memory that I have as the last sort of live, non-socially distanced experience. So it's been, I can't wait. I've got some things coming up that, God willing, will happen. So. Right.
Well, it's good to know that clearly your creative juices have not been squelched in the midst of all this, and that you're thinking through to some exciting projects for the future. And all we have to do is figure out a time and a place for these to happen, and they will sooner or later.
Yeah.
And we need, you know what, I have to share with you and everybody, I'm literally staying 2 doors down from Carnegie Hall here in Midtown Manhattan. So I passed by Carnegie a number of times over the last few days, and there's a poster outside of Carnegie, and obviously put up by the hall, and it says, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Patience, patience, patience. And while there's a poignancy to that, is also a nice little bit of wry humor, and I think these are words that we should all be living by at this point. So patience for you and for me to be able to get to the next rung of the ladder, and it'll be all the sweeter when we do get there.
Yes. So, I think that's hard sometimes, because we're so used to going, and I know with your schedule as well, it's just everything, it's constantly, and you've got lots to do and lots of travel, when that all of a sudden is just like, wow, and if I've done some of the virtual performances and things like that, but it's just not the same. Getting back into that wonderful live, this music sort of sweeping over us, that's what I look forward to. I really do.
Me too. Well, yeah. Very nice said. But in the meantime, it's been just absolutely lovely chatting with you. We could go on for a long time, but I think this has been feels like a good place to wrap it up for now. And just wanted to send you my thanks and best wishes. Please stay safe, both you and Anne, and I look forward to seeing you at some point whenever we can. It'll be wonderful.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Stuart. Take care.
You
Bye.
too.